This week we're going to talk about mandatory pre-bid conferences and what to do about those, and that we're not going to be having mandatory pre-bid conferences, but some creative ways that we can still get some information to, or the proper information to our vendors without having to meet in person. We also will have our next bid by training next Wednesday, or I'm sorry, this Wednesday, December 9th, which will be tomorrow. We'll hit our recently asked questions that we've received in the last week or so. And our bid by activity, we're actually going to circle back similar to what we did last week, but we had several questions about it and a couple vendor questions asking about the same sort of thing. How can I find the bid tab? And then we have this on this day in history. So first off, let's talk about mandatory pre-bid conferences. So this is going to be regarding those site visits and those walkthroughs. So due to the ongoing pandemic, we should have no mandatory pre-bid conferences that would require in-person attendance. So we've seen some really creative ways and options to still get that information to our potential bidders by using pictures, maps, schematics. Even you could do videos to show, kind of a walkthrough of what the vendor needs to see, and that way, that'll be a part of one of the attachments in your solicitation when it goes out. So that way, all vendors can access that same information. And so, for instance, we've seen some snow removal. There was a CMS did a snow removal one, and we had maps, and of course the address is on there so the vendor can drive by and see, but also having pictures and having some marked up pictures or marked up maps or highlighted maps, all those different sort of things, any way that you can get that information to the vendors without having an in-person walkthrough. So just so you know, will not be allowing those mandatory pre-bid conferences for site visits and those walkthroughs. Okay, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to specifically to your SPO. They would be involved for those procurements anyway, and they're all on the same page and understand the reasoning for this. Of course, with the ongoing pandemic, that really is the reason. So safety is always a priority for all involved, and so we have to do a little bit more due diligence to make sure that that information is clear to the vendor, where I know sometimes it could have in the past, and it might be a little easier just to say, hey, yeah, come and come to our site visit or a walkthrough, whereas now we have to get a little bit more creative. But also, by doing it this way, we also are it allows it to be a little bit more competitive, right? Because maybe a vendor just couldn't make it that specific day. Now, if that's mandatory, they're going to be deemed non-responsive. So this allows the information to get to the vendor, all the vendor pool, and potentially have more vendors actually submit because that in-person attendance is not required. Next, our next training is going to be tomorrow, Wednesday, December 9th. We're not changing up the agenda or anything that we've done the last few months. I think it's going well, and the feedback we've received is that this is working. So just as a reminder, I know sometimes I feel like a broken record on these, but I want to make sure that the word is out on these bid buy trainings, and certainly how we have more we have new people coming in all the time and new responsibilities into procurement, and people may be joining us this week that weren't here last week. But anyway, we offer a monthly bid buy training, which will be offered the second Wednesday of each month. And we have these different modules and these different sessions that are available. Okay, so we would love to have you all day long. Certainly, if you are new to bid buy and you're going to be receiving your access to bid buy, you would need to attend all four of these. But if you have been in bid buy for a while, but maybe you just haven't done a small purchase in a while and you want to join us for a specific session there, feel free to jump in and out. Each session has this same exact link. And so 9:30, we'll do an introduction, overview, a general navigation of what the system is, a little bit of history behind it, how we navigate through the system, as well as all the bells and whistles on the home screen. At 10:45, we'll do small purchase under $10,000. Break for lunch, 1 p.m., we'll do small purchase $10,000 and above, with an eye on all of our other procurements that potentially would be doing that same type of rec to bid tab PO. So even though we only do small purchase and we're specifically talking about small purchase, we also discussed that, hey, this is how you would do IFB as well. Of course, there would be different procurement requirements for that IFB versus a small purchase, but from a system standpoint, it would be generally the same thing. So that is why we don't do a separate hour on just IFBs, is because from a bid buy standpoint, and that's really what we're training on, we don't do too much of a deep dive specifically into some of the procurement training. We touch on it, of course, just because that's the nature of the documents and those sorts of things. But if you can do a small purchase, $10,000 and above, from a system standpoint, you can do some of those more higher dollar procurements in bid buy. And then 230, we do release off master train. Okay, so I'll send out an email to our SPOs and APOs to feel free to forward that. I'll send that after this training. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. All right, so let's get to our recent questions that we've received in the last week. So I wanted to follow up regarding last week's discussion regarding the bid tab. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me go back here real quick to, I see a question popped up. Sorry, Sam, I missed that. If they set up a WebEx, can it be mandatory? I think I want to say yes, because it's not in person. And so I'm guessing the reason why you'd want to have a mandatory WebEx is to just potentially discuss. I don't know, maybe that's a question. Is there a reason why it would need to be mandatory before I give any specific answer? Because I might need to circle back with that. I want to say, for BEP issues. Let me go back. That's a great question. You know, I don't want to give you a full go forth without being 100% sure on that. I think you can, but let's talk about it first, because I think there really needs to be, if there are those things that potentially could be discussed on a mandatory call, why couldn't those instructions be in writing? So I think I'm not sure if we need to circle back with that, because I think there are some potential issues there that we'll need to talk about. So that's a great question, and I'm gonna have to punt for this week. I promise you I'll follow up. I'll follow up specifically with you DHS folks before next week, but then we'll discuss next week, because I think that's a really important question. Okay, so recent question we received. So following up from last week's question regarding that bid tab, you know, we talked about what's available, how the vendors can go see that. I kind of want to unpack that a little bit more. And we had a great question regarding those restricted. If the bid tab for those small purchases that are set aside, they're restricted, so they're not available to the public. And so that bid tab is not visible to the public, but the question really was, well, if a vendor asks to see that, how can we do that? Can we share the bid tab information? And the answer is yes. You may share that bid tab information upon request of a vendor. I think many times vendors might think they need to FOIA just to get some of that bid tab information. And so I just want to clear up a misconception that a FOIA is not required to share that bid tab information. Now, if a vendor does actually request a FOIA, then that is different. You know, you would want to get your legal department involved, because there are some other things that would be needed there. But many times I think vendors, they think they need to FOIA just to see, hey, how close was I to winning, or who else submitted, what were the other pricing, those sorts of things. And that bid tab information can be shared with the vendors without actually doing a full FOIA. So, you know, if a vendor, like I said, most of the time vendor is they just want to see what the pricing structure was laid out. And so a lot of vendors don't know that they can even access that bid tab themselves without having to reach out to the agency. So, you know, showing a vendor, you certainly can show a vendor how to access that bid tab, and then that's going to decrease those requests your agencies might receive in the future. So one thing we're going to do is we're just going to, as our bid by activity this week, we're actually going to jump out and walk through that again, so you can easily see how easy it is for a vendor to get to a bid tab. But if it is one of those set-asides, the agency is going to would have to provide that information, and they certainly can do that without actually doing a FOIA. I put in specifically 20-1 155 from the procurement code. Section C, the procurement file shall be open to public inspection within 7 calendar days following award of the contract. So, like I said, if a vendor wants to do a FOIA, a full-on FOIA, that is different than saying, well, I just want to see the pricing. And so they're able to see that pricing without doing a full-on FOIA. So if they do specifically request the FOIA, then that means they're looking for other documents, those sorts of things that are not on the bid tab. Okay. Another recent question. So regarding our BAFOs, so BAFOs are best and final offers. So this is specific to RFPs and those leasing RFIs where there is an opportunity for a vendor to lower their price. Now, they can't change anything as a part of their technical proposal, but they can potentially lower their price as a part of a best and final. So you create a new quote, so you can just kind of look at the job aid as well. This lays it out a little bit in the job aids, but I wanted to unpack this a little bit more. Create a new quote, and then you add BAFO in the description. And the reason why you add that quote BAFO in the description is so it's easily, when you see the quotes in your bid tab, it's easily noted that, oh, this is the one that we created that was the best and final. Now, you do not need to reattach the other documents that were submitted. So they would have submitted all their technical proposal, they submitted all their forms, right? So forms A, forms B, disclosures, all of that sort of stuff. You don't have to reattach it to the BAFO quote. And that was essentially the question that we received is, are all those documents needed to be in the other quote now once we create a quote for that BAFO? And the answer is no, you do not need to. Those documents are already in the procurement file as a part of that other quote. So are there any questions regarding that? Okay, not seeing any questions regarding that. Is that true anytime you need to correct a quote? Yes, yep, that's fine. Now, anytime, so if there was an issue and you needed to correct a quote, you cannot. And so the reason why you have to create a new quote is that once a quote is submitted, you cannot go in and edit that quote. Okay, that the only difference there that you can actually edit is on a small purchase less than $10,000. That's that informal quote that you can go in and edit. So that's not what we're talking about here. But for other quotes, if you need to correct a quote for any reason, yeah. So essentially, if we look at it, let's look at it from in the paper world, you would have had all those documents in your procurement file. You would just be correcting the things that needed to be corrected. So that's the way we're viewing it. So you would not have to take documents that were a part of that original quote and then attach them to the corrected or BAFO quote. Okay. All right, so speaking of that bid tab, let's go out and how can a vendor access the bid tab to find the pricing? So this is where, like I said, if we can share a little bit of knowledge to our vendors, they can access this on their own, and it's of course more transparent, but also it saves the request coming in to the agencies for you to provide this information. So I want to be clear, it is absolutely okay for you to show a vendor how to do this. Okay, you're just talking about process there, and you're just imparting some bid buy wisdom out to our vendor community, which is great. We want our vendors and all our agencies to know the system inside and out. So you're just going to search the bid number in that search box on the home screen. You'll select bid tab at the bottom of the page, and then all the pricing information will be in that items tab. But let's go out and walk through that. Okay, so I have, let's see, what was the one 16438. So the vendor would know the bid number, right? So they're going to have to search the bid number, enter, and you can see here, without even going into the bid, I can see that the awarded vendor on the right-hand side is listed there. the bid opening date, the description, the buyer, and then you have the actual hyperlink to the bid. So they're going to click the bid. And then now they see just the bid in general. At the bottom of the page is the bid tab. You can also see that they have the attachments that are there. So the first thing I see here is I do have the SPO signed notice of award. So they can click on that and see the public facing notice of award, which is always important. But on the bid tab at the bottom, click bid tab, and it opens up the bid tabulation. There's a bit of information here, just even on the quotes side. You can see on the right-hand side the submitted date. If I try to go in and look at individual quotes here, I'm not going to be able to see the attachments because the attachments should have been marked confidential. So that's something that from an agency side, whenever we receive quotes, that's a part of our instruction on our job aid as well is, hey, even though a vendor, when they submit or when they attach documents, the system automatically marks them all confidential, but we still have a reminder on our job aid just to make sure that you go in and open those up and make sure all the documents are marked confidential. So you can see here in the attachments, there's nothing here because they're all marked confidential. If a document was not marked confidential, it would be right here, and that would be available to the public. And we don't want those documents, obviously, to be posted publicly. Okay, so in the items tab of the bid tab is where you're going to really get that quick snapshot of all the pricing without having to open up individual quotes. Now, certainly that pricing information is in the individual quotes, so they could do it that way, but this is the quickest way to see it. So if they go to the items tab, they can see the pricing. This was the awarded vendor, the pricing for the other two vendors. So say I'm this vendor, and I just wanted to know, I know the awarded price because I received that bid amendment as a part of my notification because I was on the bidders list. So I already knew the winning price, but maybe I wanted to see who else and what they submitted. So I can see the other pricing as well. Also on the summary tab, just shows what the awarded vendor is. So pretty easy there, but just that's something that we would want to let our vendors know that's available. Because just as a reminder, I mean, we have vendors that are coming into bid buy every day. Maybe they've never submitted. They've been in bid buy, but they've never actually submitted. So this is kind of a constant training thing that we can do. And if you guys are available and know that how quickly and how easily it is, everybody's happy. Okay. Any questions on how to find that bid tab? Just as a reminder, all I did was search the bid number. So that is the key. You do need to know the bid number. So the bid number, I go to that bid, click bid tab on the bottom, and then within those tabs, I can see that information that I'm looking for as a vendor. Okay. So I believe, yep, that's all we had so far. And our last slide is on this day in history. I realized that this started as a fun fact of the day, and I had to change it because this isn't fun at all. But December 8th every year, these are the two things that I think about a lot is 1941, United States enters World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Britain and Canada also declared war on Japan. In 1980, today is actually the 40th anniversary of the murder of John Lennon. New York City, Mark David Chapman shot John Lennon to death outside his apartment building. He was only 40 years old. Early in the day, Lennon had actually autographed an album for Chapman. So I know that's kind of a downer, but it's also important that we remember these things. And I didn't realize that he was actually only 40 years old. But if you do want a fun fact of the day, I did learn that today is National Brownie Day. So that's good. If you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us at cpogs.training, and hopefully we'll see some of you tomorrow on our bid buy training. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon. Oh, I just have a question. Did you mention that? Yes. So really quick, yeah, yay for brownies. Thank you for the reminder. So there was another question last week regarding why some awards have or some bids have bid tab and some don't. And the reason why is that the if not all line items are awarded, it stays in the opened status, and you'll not see a bid tab there. You only see a bid tab when it's in the approved status. And so we probably lost a few people. I will make a note to go back over that and share, kind of unpack that a little bit more next week as well. So sorry, I forgot to mention that. That was an update from last week as well. So I will circle back next week and touch base on that for sure, because we probably lost some people after I said we were leaving. All right. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.